A message from our event co-sponsor, Earthbound Farm.
Every day when the sun rises, so do we. Ready to make the people we reach with our produce feel good. Good because what they're eating is fresh, crisp, and downright awesome. Good because it makes them feel energized and powerful. And good because it was made right. That kind of good does great things. It means more people spend their days doing things that bring them joy, which in turn means fulfilled, hungry bodies going back to the produce aisle for more. So let's begin with the daily promise to make it a good day on Earth.
Thank you to our keynote sponsor, Solely.
You know what the world needs? One more organic produce brand. Seriously, the world needs a brand the world can afford. Solely Organic. Our healthier, more flavorful greens and herbs end up in more carts, more dinners, more drinks, for more people, more often. Grown indoors to be more reliable. It's advanced agriculture and basic math. Better choices for more shoppers equals better category sales. Solely Organic.
Recognized for their unique marketing and merchandising strategies, these next three retailers might approach fresh produce differently, but they've all got one thing top of mind: what the consumer wants. Daniel Bell's 33-year produce career landed him at Grocery Outlet as the director of produce, providing extreme insight for a company which prides itself on its extreme value. Sonia Constable might be the vice president of produce for Sprouts Farmers Market now, but her value is bringing a fresh perspective from outside the produce industry to the table. Constable has 20 years of experience leading merchandising teams across categories like pet, home, and apparel. Last but certainly not least, this Forbes 30 Under 30 alumnus based his entire company around the ugly organic produce no one wanted. Misfits Market founder and CEO Abhi Ramesh turned that idea into a multi-billion-dollar business, all while reducing food waste. Morning News Beat's Kevin Coop leads this dynamic group. The Retail Roundtable starts right now.
So I'd like to actually start where the introduction ended. I mean, here we are. We're going to do the Retailer Roundtable, and two of the retailers on the stage are relatively new to the produce business. And so I'd sort of like to start there because in our previous conversations, one of the things that you both said to me separately, not knowing the other person had said it, was that you both said some version of the US food system is essentially broken. And so I'd like to start there. And Abhi, what did you mean? What were you referring to when you said that? How is it broken, and how do you think it needs to be fixed?
Yes. So you heard some of the statistics from the Divert CEO. I think it's broken in a few different ways. I think first and foremost, the food waste problem that we'll talk about at length here. The fact that a third, plus or minus, you guys have heard different numbers, 30 to 40% of the food that we grow today here in the United States doesn't actually make it, to consumption. It gets wasted sometime along the way. So I think that's one massive way that food system's broken. The second piece to it, which is it's near and dear to our hearts here at Misfits Market, is accessibility as well. So the reason I started Misfits 5 years ago was I remember being in suburbs of Philadelphia and seeing that while farms 20 miles away were throwing out fresh produce, you'd have folks that only had access to like cheesesteaks and potato chips at bodegas 20 miles away. So the accessibility problem is another huge way that food system's broken, because you have food waste on one hand and you have folks that don't have access to healthy, fresh, affordable food on the other hand. And then I think you have a lot of different things in between, right? I think you have consumers that are maybe not fully educated on what's actually happening in the food system. I think that's what we'll talk about in a second here as well, like why food goes to waste and a lot of the sort of damaged products we're seeing out there. It's because the consumer doesn't understand, and I think we can do a better job of education. So I think those are kind of the pillars that we think about. But yes, I 100% agree with that statement. Today, the food system is essentially broken, but I think that there are ways that we can fix it. I think the folks here, we're all working diligently to do that, but I think it's going to be an all hands effort to get there.
I'm still trying to process the idea that cheesesteaks are a problem, but I'll get past that. Sonia, build on that. When you said to me the food system is essentially broken, what did you mean?
Yeah, and I think, if I start with just the core fundamental of it is the customer doesn't have access to fresh, healthy produce every day for every customer. And to me, that's the problem, where there's people out there that we know we want to be healthy. We know people want to put healthy food on the table, and they can't because they don't have access to the products. I think one of the other things that we talked about was the fact that, in produce, I'm new, but Mother Nature is real, and she's very clear to us that she is in charge. However, we have the opportunity to still produce healthy produce for that consumer. So if something's not available, that's real. However, they still need to feed their families. So if we think about how we come to the table and how we deliver that is giving them alternatives and being flexible and being able to still deliver healthy produce that's fresh to the customer every day.
Dan, you didn't say it to me, but I'm curious your reaction from somebody who's been in the business for 30 plus years.
I'll leave it to the old guy to have a different reaction. Yeah, I think broken is a hard term. I think we've got the world's best grower, packer, shippers in this country. I think there's a lot of work for us to do on making sure we have this product available for everybody, and that falls on the retailers, that falls on the government, that falls in so many different places of responsibility. I just think broken is a hard word to use for it.
Let's start, so for people who are not entirely familiar with your different business models, Sonia, tell us just very quickly, what's your secret sauce at Sprouts? What makes you different? Yeah,
so I would say from a Sprouts standpoint is produce is the heart of our business, and that's unique when it comes to a brick and mortar store. That's the first thing you see. You see our format. We have a very open format store where produce shines in the center of the store, and that's really important to our consumer. They come to us because we have the fresh produce. They come to us because we over-penetrate in our organic offerings of produce. And they come to us because those attributes are important to them, not just in the produce area, but in other areas of the store. So organic, gluten-free, we are able to really service the attributes that the consumer is looking for because these are important to the way that they eat and the way that they feed their family.
Daniel.
Yeah, so for us, we're extreme discount retailer. The same people that were clapping for me a minute ago would probably hate me when I say we don't do contract business because flexibility is the key to our business. It's our secret sauce, being able to react to the market, Mother Nature, and what she does. And the craziness we've all been dealing with here for the last 6, 8, 10 months. Just being able to react to where the flushes are, help the farmer, grower, packer, shippers out with that, and being flexible, there isn't a lot of that out there in the industry now, is our biggest strength, and I think where we fit in best with the market.
Avi. Secret sauce.
Secret sauce. We are a direct consumer e-commerce platform. So we don't have any retail stores. We operate out of fulfillment centers only. So we go and buy our products, produce, and now we've expanded into a lot of other items as well. We bring them into our fulfillment centers. We pick and pack in those fulfillment centers. We ship them out to consumers. And now with Imperfect and Misfits, the two brands having combined, we actually have our own last mile logistics network as well. So I think for us, the secret sauce really is it's how close we are to the consumer. We're a digital brand, so we spend a lot of time and energy thinking about what consumers are reacting to when they think about shopping online. We have a ton of data because 100% of our business is e-commerce online, so we have a lot of data on what that customer is shopping for, what ads they're reacting to, what they're not clicking and putting into their cart. So I think that sort of data-driven, consumer-first approach being an e-commerce platform.
Dive a little deeper on that. In terms of the data and being able to mine the data in terms of figuring out what consumers want, I mean, specifically in terms of organic produce, can you give me an example of something that you've learned that you didn't know before, that the data said, whoa,
Yeah, this is going to sound obvious, but providing information to the consumer about that piece of produce, about that piece of food, has a massive impact on our ability to move units and sell. So I'll illustrate a simple example. If we went and put broccoli that's purpling at the top on our site and listed it for sale, maybe it would sell a couple thousand units. If we put that same broccoli that's purpling on top and we had a banner that says learn about why there's purpling happening on the broccoli crown, learn about why that does not affect the flavor or the quality or anything like that, that sales might double or triple. And so, one thing we spend a lot of time reflecting on at Misfits is how do we educate the consumer? Because today, a lot of the challenge with food waste is hey, if the lettuce with the brown spot is on the shelf, the customer they're not going to buy it, right? And so there's an education gap today that exists. And so our ability to go tell the story and explain why something looks the way it looks, that has a huge impact on sales volume and how we can move things.
I mean, Sonia, we were talking about this just outside before, right? That the opportunity to educate consumers really moves the needle. I mean, something I've written on Morning Newsbeat for years is that retailers can be better if they're not just a source of product, but a resource for the consumer, a resource of information. Talk a little bit about that opportunity.
Yeah, so I would say it goes back to where I was going before of we know that things are going to be available different times a year, and we know that there's going to be gaps in the supply, and we need to do a better job as retailers on sharing those options with the consumer. So if I have a gap in iceberg lettuce and I'm not proud of the quality, you're not proud of the quality that we're putting out on shelf, then we need to give them an alternative. We need to help them navigate this journey. They're not the experts in produce. We need to be that expert for them and help them navigate into the right products. And then we also need to help them on how they treat the product when it gets home. So our goal is always to give customers more time in home with their produce. But there's also things that we can educate the consumer on, that is how to care for the produce when they get home and how to increase the life that they get with the product, because it's not just waste that comes from our supply chain, waste that comes from our stores. There's a lot of waste that happens when the product gets home, and that's part of our responsibility as well, is to help the consumer navigate that piece of their journey.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel, it's always struck me that if there's a hole in the produce department someplace because there's a product's not available, maybe because of a supply chain issue, maybe it's a quality issue, maybe it's a food safety issue, climate, whatever it happens to be, by and large, and retailers don't do a good job of explaining to consumers why the hole is there, and B, what they could use instead. Okay, we don't have this kind of a lettuce, but you can use this.
Right.
Is that hyperbole, or am I pretty much on?
I think you're nailing it. I think the education piece is huge. I mean, as an industry, we don't do a good job educating the consumers about produce, period. Whether it's from farm to table, what does that actually mean? How does that translate to a customer? What builds the cost of those goods to the customer? Why is it more expensive now than it was yesterday? As an industry, we fail at that. In the store, on the retail side, I'm a retailer, I can say this, we fail at that too, because we're not out there educating the consumers. Why is the lettuce bad now and it's $3? Why was it so good when it was 99 cents, but now it's $3? Can you get romaine hearts to substitute into this? So I think whether it's through QR codes, some other database way of doing it, as an industry, we need to be better at it.
Well, I do think that's one way in which consumers, I mean, this certainly plays into your business model, consumers have gotten smarter about using this stuff simply because, I mean, everybody knows now how to, not everybody, but almost everybody knows how to scan a QR code, because that was the only time to order during the pandemic, the only way you could do it. So now that people are familiar with the technology, it seems to me it's an opportunity for retailers to work with growers, packers, and figure out how do we use this technology to communicate more effectively to the consumer.
Yeah, and that helps build our relationship with the consumer too, is they start to trust us. And I would say from a grower, from a retailer, as we start to educate them in a way that gives them that longevity with the product at home.
Yeah. I just referenced the pandemic, and I hate to look back, right? I'd rather look forward. But I'm curious if there are any, based on what happened during the past 3+ years, were there ways in which you've seen the consumer evolve, where the consumers change, in that you had to then kind of adjust the way that you came to market? Avi?
I think one of the, obviously, one of the, let's call it positive changes, I think, is pre-pandemic expectations for consumers grocery shopping was really like, I'm gonna walk into a store, there's gonna be 50,000 SKUs, I'm gonna be able to pick whatever I want to, it's all in stock. And the good part of this, I know there's a bad part of this, so the good part of what happened in the pandemic was it was a forced reset of expectations for consumers. All of a sudden, you probably have to order online for some period of time. Things are out of stock all the time. You're having to make trade-offs as a consumer that you didn't have to a couple of years ago. And while, like I said, that's bad because it's caused by the pandemic, I think there are some positive implications there as well. I think what we've seen over the past couple of years is a lot of consumers are now looking at it and saying, hey, maybe I don't need 100,000 items to go pick through every single week. Maybe I am willing to work with some of these trade-offs. Like if broccoli is not available, I'll go to broccolini or baby broccoli. Like maybe I am willing to make some of these trade-offs because I had to do it a couple of years ago and nothing happened, right? My family was fed and it worked. And so I think a little bit of sort of the expectation reset and the ability to work with a more curated assortment, the ability to sort of make trade-offs when things are not available. I think we've seen that shift. Our model at Misfits, like we carry less than 1,000 items. We're growing that gradually over time, but today there's less than 1,000 SKUs listed on the site. And a lot of folks on the platform that use it, they are using that for their full grocery trip. So, I don't know if the right answer is 1,000, but I certainly think working with sort of a more finite assortment, working with an assortment that is, more closely tied to how Mother Nature works and not having everything in stock all the time, I think there is, more of a willingness to work with something like that.
Yeah. Listen, I'm a big fan of that model, not least of which because I have, for 40 or so years, I have shopped every week at Stu Leonard's in Connecticut, and they have 1,200 items. And I can do most of my shopping there. So it is possible to do that. So in your cases, though, you're operating stores, physical stores. Have you seen in produce especially, have you seen your SKU count come down? Are you curating to a greater degree than you were previously?
Yeah, so we absolutely are. It's the right thing for the customer for us to have less SKUs and turn the product faster so that it could be fresher for them. However, we do make sure that when it is seasonally relevant, we give that variety because our consumer gives us a lot of credit for that. So if you walk into Sprouts today and you see the variety in stone fruit and cherries, it's the right time for us to do that, and it's what the customer is looking for from us. And then just to kind of tag on the changes since the pandemic, one of the other things that I would call out that I think is just incredible as far as the change in consumer is they have taken control away from us in some regards. So if you look at the way the consumer votes now for product is they use social media in a way that I've never seen before. And that's something where we have to, as retailers, show up our best every single day because the customer is voting every single day and they're voting with their audience now. So it's no longer I put a TV commercial on and I drive traffic in the store. It's, at Sprouts, we had a sandwich go viral. Like that's one of those things where who knew a $5 sandwich was going to be the key that drove customers into our store to the point of running out of turkey meat. So the customer is voting and they're voting big and they're voting with their audience. So it is up to me to deliver as a retailer every single day.
And I don't know that it's a bad thing to run out.
No, I think it's a great thing.
You run out of stuff, and all of a sudden people go, well, next time I hear about this thing that's viral, I've got to get there early.
It's exciting,
I can't afford to wait. Daniel.
Yeah, I think everybody learned how to adapt during the pandemic. You know, consumers did, the retailers did. Consumers learned that they could try other things. They could eat other things because what they went to the stores for wasn't there, per se. Retailer-wise, we learned we had to be flexible. We had to go and be able to go in different directions. We had to fill things, try different things. You know, at Geo, we had to try different retails, different price points that traditionally we went nowhere near, just to adapt to things. And then to the social media and all that, yeah, it's out there. It's real. Anything you do now is, you know, it comes back to you. I'm not a social, you know, I don't do the whole Twitter and all that stuff. But you
didn't go on Threads last weekend?
You know, surprising to a lot of people that know me, yes. But yeah, the feedback that gets out there right away and how it just goes out, especially for us, because as our model is set up, the treasure hunt, when there's something great in our stores, whether it's a $1.99 strawberry, $1.49 cherry, whatever it may be, that gets out there and it spreads fast. And that the volume that comes from that, the consumers that come in hitting that, is just phenomenal, the way that plays into the business nowadays.
I mean, it's been interesting because consumers have evolved in this way, but I also think that Americans expect to have everything available to them all the time, right? I mean, it used to be you would only get corn at certain times a year, and now they expect to have it, great quality corn all the time. And so I think it is there's two forces, it seems to me, they're kind of working against each other here, right? The American expectation that everything should be available to us all the time and it's got to be high quality. And okay, I learned during the pandemic that, you know, one ply is a sacrifice. And come on, that's the only toilet paper joke you're going to hear at this conference, I guarantee. But right, so those things I think are working against each other. Am I right about that?
Yeah, but I think that goes back to what we said before on education, is we need to do a better job educating the customer on when it's the right time to buy certain things. There's stuff that, yeah, we can figure out how to get it year round and how to get that healthy year-round supply that's fresh. But the consumer, if they listen and if we do a good job telling them, they know that there's certain times a year that you're going to have cherries and they're going to be incredible and they're going to be local and the quality and the flavor and everything about them is going to be great. And we have to make sure that they understand that's a limited time program and we'll have something else that's great later. But right now, get it while you can. But we need to tell them that and we need to educate them on that.
So obviously we have a lot of grower packer suppliers in the audience. So I'm just curious, this is an opportunity, I think, to share maybe some certain things with them. How do you think you could all work better with that community to be better partners and to be better for the consumer? Daniel, start.
I think it all goes back to communication, having the open lines with the grower packer shippers, being proactive, trying to get in front of things rather than be reactive and wait till it's too late. You know, we're all great at trying to sell things on Fridays when you're stuck with it and decisions have already been made. Just trying to get out ahead of the curve, you know, and communicating that to the retailers. Being aggressive on the organic side would be a great piece. I don't think we've done that as an industry per se, as much as we do on the conventional side. You don't see organic-led ads out there on the retail side because the pricing and the aggressiveness a lot of times isn't there from the grower packer shippers to partner in something like that. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just open the lines of communication better.
How often do you lead with organic products in your ads?
We just did it for the 4th of July ad. We led with organic blueberries and organic strawberries. We've got 3 big organic items on our ad that just broke Wednesday. So we're trying to do it as often as possible.
Sonia.
So we do lead with organic because our consumer is heavy on the organic side of things. I would agree with you, though, it's the communication. So we need to have better lines of communication further out, where, yes, we know that we have to be flexible when we're in season. We all know that. but we need to be sharing our strategies. So, what is Sprouts doing 3 to 5 years from now? What am I thinking about? Where am I growing and developing? Where am I opening stores? I need to be having those conversations with my growers now so that we can make sure that we have the right amount of supply and that we're able to fulfill the needs. And I need to understand what my growers are doing from an innovation standpoint. Where are they going to be focusing their time and energy, whether it's the conventional or the organic? We need to make sure that we're in lockstep so that we can grow this business together and we can do a better job showing up for the customer together.
Can you give me an example, and you can be as specific or non-specific as you want to be, of a time where you learned something from a grower, supplier, packer on a Friday and then sort of went, God, if we'd only known that on Monday, we could have dealt with the situation. Daniel, you're laughing over there. So I'll get to you on this. Sonia, can you give me an example?
Yeah, I would say, a recent example for us is 4th of July and corn. So we found out very late that we had some quality issues going into a big weekend when it comes to that particular commodity, and we didn't show it for the customer the way that we could have. So if we had known that 3-4 days earlier, we could have done something different from a partnership standpoint and made sure that we delivered what we needed to for the customer. So that's just one example of we need to talk, and we need to talk as early as we can.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, for all the farmers out there, you guys are so good at what you do. You know when the product is coming on. You know when it's going to be there. You know what you're going to have to flush when it flushes. Being proactive about it and coming to us as a retailer on a Tuesday, Wednesday, is going to get you a better return. It's going to put you in a better position for us to be able to move on it versus waiting till the weekend when we've already pretty much set what we're doing and going into the weekend into the next week. It's a better way for everybody. And I know it kind of goes against things to take a little bit less early so you get more later, but it's such a big part of what we do on our side, being able to be reactive. I can give you an offer on something on Friday, but chances are you're really not going to like it, especially if it's a dated item, because I'm not going to get it in stores till Monday or Tuesday the next week. If I get that offer on, say, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I can give you an offer then. We can work with our partners to get a truck on it that day and get it into the stores right away. So you're going to get a better return on it. I'm going to get a better return on it. The consumer's going to get a better product, and it's a win-win for everybody.
So we've now established Tuesday's the new Friday.
Right.
Your business model's different. So talk a little bit about how you think you could work better with grower, packer, shippers to be more effective.
I'll talk about maybe something it's adjacent to communication, which I think there is a massive storytelling opportunity that we are currently missing out on. And we're trying to do more of it at Misfits, but the broccoli example I gave, that's like, tip of the iceberg. The amount of knowledge that is in this room and the growers and packers have on organic produce in general, why organic growing is different from conventional growing. And I was with the wonderful team from Lakeside that I see up here yesterday, and there was a tremendous amount that I learned about organic harvest and growing yesterday. The consumer doesn't know any of that. They don't. That's the reality. There's maybe a small group of diehard organic buyers who are early in the organic movement who know some of it, but the vast majority of folks don't. And we've seen, even on our end, we've seen folks who are like, I only want to buy organic. They'll go buy, order online. They'll get maybe one small bug in their box, and they'll freak out about it, right? And it's like, why do I have it? It's like, well, you're buying organic, right? It's like, it's sort of part of it, but they don't understand that. And it's not their fault. It's just that the education hasn't happened. And I think I'm giving an example of organic storytelling. Then you have sort of the food waste storytelling as well, right? Hey, there's like spinach that's a little bit too big, and so we're selling it as an opportunistic buy. The broccoli example, you have a lettuce with some scarring on it. You have kale with discoloration. One of our big priorities at Misfits is to figure out a way to get these opportunities from the growers and packers, get it on our site and sell it to the customer, but also to tell the stories, because I think those are stories that consumer needs to hear because they want to hear it, but that's what's going to move units and get sales and also sort of allow us to go tackle this huge food waste problem that we're trying to tackle at a much larger scale.
So I'm curious, give me one thing that grower suppliers don't understand about your business.
I think for us, there are unique elements of the kind of direct-to-consumer e-commerce model that make certain things tricky. So I'll give you kind of the quick obvious one is when a customer orders from us, they're not going to a store and putting it in their cart and taking it out. We are packing it into a box, which means and that box then goes on either a FedEx truck or one of our trucks. It's jostled around a bunch before it gets to the customer. So, unlike sort of traditional produce retail, there are certain packaging requirements and things that we have to think about because, a delicate clamshell of raspberries is super hard to get to the customer. And same thing with like case sizes and things like that. Another example that's popped up recently is for us to sell items, especially produce items where the counts can vary dramatically. Is super tough because we're not selling by pound. We're not actually weighing things before we put it into a box. The customer's buying X units of something and paying for it. So if X units could be 3 pounds or 6 pounds, they're going to be upset if they underbought or overbought. So those are some slight nuances about kind of this e-commerce model where we're not necessarily selling it by weight sometimes, and then it's going into a box and getting shipped to someone. That means there are packaging requirements and case and unit requirements are a little bit different.
Sonia, one thing that they should know, they don't know about your business, they should.
Yeah, so I would say for us, it's as we grow as a retailer out in the market, yes, we have contracted prices, yes, we have all of those things, and it's important for us to have a great national assortment. However, we still are small enough and we're still nimble enough to be able to send something that if you've got enough inventory for 3 stores, let's ship it to 3 stores and see how it does. We have the flexibility to do some of those spot buys. We have the flexibility to chase after some small things, test some small things with you guys. So, when you have those opportunities, don't look at us as a big retailer. Look at us as a small farmer's market and someone who does have the flexibility to try new things and do different things with you.
Daniel.
I think you can trust us with your product and your labels. We're a discount retailer. It says outlet on the front of the building. It's come a long way in my 13 years. A lot of the companies have put a lot of effort and pride into their business, and the business has grown and evolved and changed for us. Most everybody trusts us with their product. There's still some out there, but you can actually trust us with your brands. We handle your brands with respect. Your labels, the effort you put into building that label means something to us at Grocery Outlet. We respect what you've done, and we try to honor it in what we do and how we present it to the consumers.
Explain that to me a little bit. What does it mean when they don't, if they don't think you respect their brand? What does that mean exactly?
Obviously, a lot of companies put a lot of effort to build their brand, their label, their name. And when dealing with outlet stores, discount retailers, there's a stigma there, and it's well-deserved in a lot of cases. We deserved it at one point, but we've come a long way, so that stigma should be gone, and hopefully is gone, that you can sell it to us and know that we're going to have, it's not going to wind up on a pallet out of refrigeration stuck out in the front of the store.
Gotcha.
If it's a salad and it's a temperature-controlled environment.
So people who won't sell to you because they're concerned. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so what?
Go ahead. One more thought on this question, which I think for growers and packers out there, I'm speaking on behalf of maybe all 3 of us, but you have 3 retailers here that think differently about produce, in my opinion. And so I would encourage everyone, if there are opportunities out there that you're seeing where you're like, hey, here's like a unique inefficiency on the field, and my other alternative is to maybe like leave it there, not harvest it, come to us, right? Like worst case scenarios, we'll be like, we maybe can't do it. But in reality, we're probably going to play ball because one of the key sort of tenets that we're thinking about here is like we're trying to think about the industry differently. We're trying to make impact by doing things differently. And so, if there are problems that you're facing, if there's inefficiencies that you're seeing in the way you're growing, harvesting, packing, we want to be your partners. So come to us, and I think that's probably you're looking at 3 retailers here that are going to think about things a lot differently than the really, really big players in the space.
It may just come back to effective storytelling, but is there something about growers' businesses, and I'm painting with a broad brush here, that you'd like to understand better? That you think if they just explained it to you, it would create both opportunities and eliminate inefficiencies? Daniel.
Yeah, I just think the education, again, the story is I love going on field tours. I love going to packing sheds. I love meeting people and being a part of all that. I think it's the education piece. Invite your retailers to your facilities. Give them tours. Show them what it means to go to field, to pack it, to pick it, to harvest it, the whole thing, so that we know more about your business, what you're doing, what goes into it. And then when we get it on our side, we can understand and appreciate that better on how we do things. You know, it's easy as a retailer to sit back and say, okay, well, I can do this, I need this, and go with it, but not understanding the whole field to fork part. The consumer's the same way. They have no clue about any of that. You know, we live in the most fertile state in the country. We grow all this food here, and I was talking with a grower down in Oceanside earlier this year. Your consumers that live right next door to you have no concept who you are and what you do, and what goes into you getting your product to their tables. And we're watching these guys that they bring in from another country literally go down the row hand planting these tomato plants. And the consumers have no idea why the tomatoes cost a little bit more this year. And that's the part of the education process that as an industry, we need to get out there and get in front of the consumers for us to remain healthy, period.
Sonia.
I think for me, it's what are you excited about and where's the innovation coming from? Because, you know, as I get out there with the growing partners and learn about what you're doing, there's so much passion and so much knowledge and so much excitement that you guys have about your product. Share that with us because we get excited about it too. So, you know, as I go out there and I'm at, you know, a stone tree grower and learning about the innovation that they're bringing to the market with flavor and color and size and shape, and you know, those are the things that I can share with my consumers. So understanding where you're going is really important for us as we think about our long-term partnership and how we show up together for the consumer.
Avi.
Understanding your pain points and inefficiencies. Right, like what's going on? You know, are there particular crops where you have, you know, much lower yield for some reason? Are there you know, aesthetic issues that you're dealing with that you know that are not allowing you to sell to traditional retailers? I think we want to get in there and understand the pain points, understand inefficiencies, because that's our business. You know, our core business is trying to figure out what those inefficiencies are that growers have, and then how we can essentially go and still buy that product and get it to the customer. So understanding that, I think, is probably the thing I'm most curious and interested in.
I want to do we don't have a ton of time left, so I want to do a little bit of a lightning round here. Talk a little bit about controlled environment agriculture and the impact that it's having on your businesses and also in terms of the organic footprint. How is that affecting your business? Sonia.
So I would say for us, we're still in a learning phase. So we're learning right along with our growers. There's some commodities that it's working and we're understanding. There's others that it's going to take some time, and it's going to take the growers really educating us on how it works and how we can make sure that we're delivering still the same quality of product to the consumer that we are as if it's grown out in a field.
Avi.
I think a similar reaction. I think we're willing to sort of be guinea pigs and test and sort of also understand like what the consumers are thinking about this as well. I think there's still probably a lot of experimentation to be done on like, you know, quality, longevity, pricing strategy on some of this, like all of that, which I'm sure you guys echo as well. So we're willing to experiment, but I think it's still it's early days.
But by the way, a great storytelling opportunity as
Definitely.
it involves. Daniel.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of great products out there right now. I think in some of the commodities that they're trying to get into, it's very expensive and probably not a long-term solution. It might be a regional spot type of thing. But there's definitely some great products coming out of it now that we definitely partner up and sell. I don't think it's a viable long-term solution in some of the things, but I think it's definitely a way to augment supply and keep product out there in certain areas.
Okay. Inflation, recession. The inflation numbers seem to be coming down. If we have a recession, it looks like it's going to be short and shallow. And yet there's a big recessionary mindset out there on the part of a lot of Americans. Talk very quickly about the impact that inflation has had on your businesses and what you're doing to kind of gird for that going forward. Daniel.
It's made us be better on our side and sharper on how we go to business. We're actually dealing with deflation in some commodities and fighting that, as I'm sure everybody else is here too. You know, cherries is one area right now. So just trying to balance that out and then trying to maintain that value statement that we have in our stores. It's been a challenge. We've tried different things we wouldn't normally do. But for us, it's about the value statement and watching what everybody else is doing and then trying to be good students of the industry before we go to market.
Sonia.
So I think for us, it's the understanding that the consumer still needs to feed their family. And so yes, they have a limited pocketbook now, and there is an element of them making choices, and in some places they're making a choice that they can no longer afford convenience, and they're trading out of some of the convenience items and into some of the bulk items. So we're having to kind of ebb and flow and learn and watch as the consumer is moving to the different commodities based on what they're able to afford. But my job and our job is to still be able to deliver them healthy, fresh produce for their families so they can still deliver on that lifestyle choice.
Avi.
I think I would echo that. We have a more value-conscious consumer now, right? I think their excess savings from post-COVID era is down pretty dramatically. You have like student loan repayments, which are restarting shortly, and in general, like a more stressed consumer. So I think that the trade downs, the focus on value packs, the focus on, now I actually want to save the $10, $15 a week that I maybe didn't care about 2 years ago. That is a lot more top of mind for consumers. So I think the value piece is critical.
So there was a story last week that started this way. The Globe set a record for the warmest June since at least 1940. New and emerging climate data shows obliterating the previous milestone from 2019. The Globe set a new single-day record for the hottest day yet measured on July 3rd, and then did it again on the 4th. So, to what degree, no pun intended, do you think this is going to have an impact on availability of product, quality of product going forward? And are you actively preparing your businesses for the fact that the what's going on out there? And you said it was 115 when you left home. What impact that's going to have on your businesses going forward, Avi?
Huge impact. And again, like I was with another grower a couple of days ago in near Fresno, and luckily managed to make it out before it was 112 degrees, but I think it was like 103 degrees that day. It's too hot for me. And you see it, right? You see both that high temperature, but also the fact that we were talking about this earlier, started off cooler and sort of ramped up those high temperatures very quickly. That is impacting yields, that is impacting scarring and discoloration on commodities. So I think it will impact availability. But the flip side to that is, I'll go back to the kind of like inefficiency storytelling piece. I think we can still sell a lot of this product. I think it's a question of getting out in front of the consumer early, telling the story, and actually kind of, and we can move that. But I think we have to do that pretty quickly to be able to do that effectively.
Yeah, I think 103 may be too hot for you, but I think it's supposed to be 97 in Philadelphia this weekend. So
I'm staying here for another couple days.
Sonia.
So I would say, the same thing is, yes, it's going to have an impact. Like I said before, I can't control Mother Nature. What I can control, though, is the story I tell my consumer and the fact that they still have to feed their families. And so I think that's where the communication back and forth really comes into play, is understanding the yields, understanding what is available so that we can guide the consumer to the right place, and we can make sure that we're still providing fresh produce for the customer so that they can still feed their families. We have to make sure that Mother Nature is, in some regards, it's our problem on our end, and the consumer has to be the one that we're helping navigate through it, and we're helping them to get to what they need for their families.
That is such a smart thing to say, because I think you're absolutely right. I think education is really, really important. But if education is just telling the consumer these are our problems, you're going to lose the consumer, right? Mm-hmm. All of your jobs is to help the consumer solve their problems. And you can educate them about what's going on in the background, right? And what's affecting yield and prices and things like that. But if it ever veers into, you guys should really feel sorry for us, you'll lose the consumer, right? Daniel.
Yeah, it's obviously very real. We've all been looking at crops that were late coming on because of cooler weather. Still some being delayed because of cooler weather. It's starting to warm up finally. it's something that as a retailer you have to be ready to bridge that gap, knowing that the consumer now expects things at certain times of the year and availability on everything all the time. So you have to be willing to say, stick with Mexican grapes maybe a little bit longer as the California season is delayed coming on, or stick with something, push berries stronger when the stone fruit season is delayed like it has been here before it sizes up and comes on. So as a retailer, you have to be willing to commit to these things, have them up front, and maybe be a little sharper on your retails to get the consumers to buy it and go in that direction.
So we have just, go ahead.
I was going to say, you reminded me, there's also a broader story that we can tell the customer as well, the consumer as well on, I mean, these high temperatures, right? It's connected to the climate crisis that we're in, right? And that's a problem that everyone can get behind. And we know that every consumer out there cares deeply about both the food waste sustainability problem, but also how that connects to the climate problem. And so, like, you know, we at Misfits tell the story often of like, look, like food that goes to landfills creates methane gas. Methane gas is 50 times worse than carbon dioxide because of its molecular composition. It retains heat in the atmosphere more. And so, like, if you buy this food and keep it from going to the landfill and do things that are more efficient, you are keeping that methane gas out of the environment. So I think there's kind of the micro stories to tell on, hey, here's why this broccoli, you know, you should buy and high temperatures. Then there's the macro story of like, look, we're in a climate crisis. We need everyone to step up, and consumers are a huge part of that equation.
I heard a scientist on TV last night saying, you know, that people are referring to what we're going all through right now in terms of the climate and all the problems that are happening, whether it's in Phoenix or Vermont or whatever it happens to be. And they said, you know, everybody's referring to it as the new normal. And he goes, the problem is 10 years from now, we may look it back as this as being the good old days. Yeah. So that's the challenge. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, so I very quickly want you to prognosticate a little bit, which is very hard to do, but I'm curious, as you kind of look out 5 years, okay, is there a fundamental way that you think your business may be different 5 years from now, number one? And number two, when we all gather in this room for OPS 2028, and I really hope it's as cool out and beautiful as it is today, what do you think what are the issues you think we'll all be dealing with? Your business in 5 years, and what's the big issue that'll be on this industry's mind in 5 years?
Hopefully they're tied, and I think there's a scale. Like, I think we'll be in 5 years a lot bigger, selling a lot more products, hopefully a lot more organic produce as well.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I don't think I did this in the beginning.
Yeah.
How big are you? How many states are you in? How big is your business? So they understand.
Yeah, so we serve all 48 lower states, so we don't ship to Alaska, Hawaii, but 48 lower states, every zip code in all of those states. We launched in 2015, so we've been around for about 5.5 years now. We serve a few 100,000 customers on a monthly basis.
So bigger for you is not geographic, it's deeper. It's a bigger footprint in
Correct.
that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's expanding assortment, expanding SKU count, and in general sort of getting more people on board with our mission of limiting food waste and creating access from that. And so, I think we view as we're tiny in the space. We're new, we've been around for 5 years. So hopefully we grow, and in 5 years we come back, and the limiting factor is like we can't sell it. Sales are through the roof, and we're a lot bigger, and so we're coming to all of you guys and saying, like, how do we get more product from all of you?
Okay, I want to drink what you're drinking. Sonia.
So for us, we're also growing quickly. So we're looking at about 30 new stores a year coming up over the next 5 years. So a lot of growth.
So you're 150 stores bigger in 5 years.
Yes.
How many are you now?
So we are just under 400 stores right now. So we're growing fast, and we're going to continue to grow. But what I would say for us is we're going to stay nimble. So we're going to grow, we're going to get bigger, but we're going to have the flexibility to make sure that we can still, bring something into 10 stores, do something that's, a really great spot buy opportunity. If I look to the future for us, though, is we're going to continue to expand organics. Our customer expects that from us. Our customer wants us to have the freshest organic product out there, and they want us to have it at a great value. And so that's something that we're going to continue to push, whether it's on a local front or a national stage. And then I would also say We're going to spend a lot of time listening to the customer. If you ask what this is going to look like in 5 years, the customer is going to tell us where to go. And so we need to make sure that we are listening and we're moving and we're growing the direction the customer wants us to. Because like I said before, they're voting and they're voting loud for how they want to deliver product to their shelves.
Yeah. Memo to Matt, maybe one of these years we ought to do a consumer panel here and talk to consumers about what they're expecting. Daniel, bring us home.
Hopefully I still have the same hairline. Keep my fingers crossed for that. Hopefully we'll be a lot closer to 1,000 stores. Hopefully our produce sections inside our stores will continue to grow and we'll get a bigger piece of the store as we continue to drive penetration on total store. Hopefully our organic sales continue to grow in high double digits and we keep building that consumer base and hopefully we find a way to take plastic out of the packaging and have a better alternative out there for everybody.
And what's the big thing we're going to be talking about here at OPS 2028?
My amazing hairline and how I look as young then as I do now.
Okay, we've established what your priority is. So listen, I think there's a lot of common themes that have come out today, but a lot of this is about education. A lot about this is about storytelling. It's storytelling from the packer growers to the retailer. It's working together to do storytelling to the consumer. And I'll come back to the line I used before. If there are natural limitations on every business in the room, if all you are is a source of product. But if you are a resource for each other and ultimately a resource to the consumer, I think that's the thing that's going to drive organics. It's going to drive the businesses in general. And so then hopefully 5 years from now, when we're back talking in this room, we're talking about a business that has grown enormously since we were here in 2023. Join me in giving our panel a great round of applause. You all were great. I know that you were very patient because I know that we're the only thing standing between you and lunch and a great afternoon on the exhibit floor. So thank you so much.